I felt the city air wrap around us like silk as he pressed me against the brick wall of the rooftop. The Brooklyn skyline glittered below, but all I could focus on was the heat radiating from his body, the way his fingers traced the curve of my waist through the thin fabric of my dress. "Are you sure about this?" he whispered, his breath warm against my ear. I didn't answer with words. Instead, I pulled him closer, letting my body speak for me. The party continued behind us, music pulsing, laughter echoing, but we had found our own private corner of the world. His hands moved with deliberate slowness, exploring every curve, every sensitive spot that made my breath catch. The rough texture of the brick wall pressed against my back created a delicious contrast to his gentle touch. I could hear footsteps approaching, but I didn't care. Nothing mattered except this moment, this man, this feeling of being completely alive. Like what you're hearing so far? Hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what's got you hooked. Trust me, this is just the beginning. The evening had started innocently enough. I'd been working on my novel for hours, the cursor blinking mockingly at me from my laptop screen, when the sound of music drifted through my open window. It was coming from the rooftop of the building next door, Grayson's building. I'd noticed him around the neighborhood for months, always giving me that slow, knowing smile when we passed on the street. He was the kind of man who commanded attention without trying, with his dark hair that always looked perfectly tousled and those eyes that seemed to see right through you. The music grew louder and I could hear voices, laughter, a part of me wanted to close the window and return to my work, but another part, the part that had been hibernating for too long, whispered that maybe what I needed wasn't another paragraph, but a little adventure. I changed into a flowing summer dress that hugged my curves in all the right places, applied a touch of lipstick, and before I could second-guess myself, I was climbing the fire escape to his rooftop. The party was intimate, maybe 15 people, scattered across the space, string lights casting everything in a warm golden glow. A makeshift bar was set up near the door, and couples swayed to the music that poured from hidden speakers. The whole scene felt like something out of a movie, romantic, spontaneous, perfect. "Kayla?" His voice cut through the music, and I turned, to find Grayson approaching with 2 drinks in his hands. He looked even better up close, wearing a simple white shirt that showed off his tanned arms and dark jeans that fit him perfectly. "I was hoping you'd come." "You were?" I accepted the drink he offered, our fingers brushing as I took it. The touch sent a little spark up my arm. "I've been thinking about asking you up here for weeks," he admitted, his eyes never leaving mine. "Just never found the right moment." The admission made my pulse quicken. "Well, here I am." "Here you are," he repeated, and the way he said it made it sound like a promise. We talked easily, leaning against the railing that overlooked the city. He told me about his work as a photographer, how he'd moved to Brooklyn to capture the energy of the city. I shared stories about my writing, about the characters that lived in my head and sometimes felt more real than the world around me. "Dance with me," he said when a slower song began to play. It wasn't really a question. I set down my drink and let him lead me to the center of the rooftop, where other couples were already moving together. His hand settled on the small of my back, pulling me close enough that I could smell his cologne, something warm and masculine that made me want to bury my face in his neck. We moved together easily, our bodies finding a rhythm that felt natural, inevitable. With each song we grew closer, the space between us shrinking until there was barely any distance at all. His hand traced patterns on my back through the thin fabric of my dress, and I could feel the warmth of his palm against my skin. "Your trouble," he murmured against my ear, his voice low and rough. "Am I?" I tilted my head back to meet his gaze, and the intensity I saw there made my breath catch. "Definitely." His thumb brushed along my cheekbone, and I leaned into the touch. That's when I noticed her watching us. Tessa stood near the bar, a knowing smile playing on her lips as she observed our dance. She was beautiful in an effortless way, with long blonde hair and the kind of confidence that drew people to her like a magnet. I'd noticed her earlier, the way she seemed to float through the party, touching shoulders, whispering in ears, clearly comfortable in her own skin. "She's watching us," I whispered to Grayson. He glanced over without breaking our rhythm. "Tessa, she likes to watch beautiful things." The comment sent a flush of heat through me. "Is that what we are?" "Look around," he said, gesturing subtly to the other guests. I followed his gaze and realized that several people had stopped their own conversations to watch us dance. There was something magnetic about the energy between us, something that drew attention. "Does that bother you?" he asked. I considered the question. A month ago it might have, but something about this night, about him, about the way the city lights reflected in his eyes, made me feel bold. "No," I said, surprised by my own honesty. "It doesn't." His smile was slow and dangerous. "Good." Tessa appeared beside us as the song ended, moving with the fluid grace of someone completely comfortable in her own skin. "Mind if I cut in?" she asked, but she was already placing her hand on my waist, her touch light, but confident. I looked to Grayson, uncertain, but he just smiled and stepped back slightly, creating space for the 3 of us. "I don't mind sharing," he said, and something in his tone made my pulse quicken. Tessa moved behind me, her body warm against my back as Grayson stayed in front of me. I was caught between them, surrounded by their heat, their energy. Tessa's hands settled on my hips as we swayed to the music, and I could feel every breath she took, every subtle movement of her body against mine. "Relax," she whispered in my ear, her voice like honey. "Let yourself feel this." I closed my eyes and let the sensation wash over me. Grayson's hands on my arms, Tessa's fingers tracing the curve of my waist, the music wrapping around us like a cocoon. Other couples had stopped dancing entirely now, content to watch our slow, sensual movement. When I opened my eyes, Grayson was studying my face intently. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Alive," I breathed, and it was the truth. More alive than I'd felt in months, maybe years. "Want to get some air?" Tessa suggested, though we were already outside. But I understood what she meant. She wanted to move away from the crowd, to find someplace more private. The three of us walked to the far corner of the rooftop, where the city stretched out below us like a carpet of stars. The noise of the party faded to a gentle hum behind us, replaced by the distant sounds of traffic and the soft whisper of wind. "It's beautiful up here," I said, though I was looking at them more than the view. "It is," Grayson agreed, but his eyes were on me. Tessa moved to stand behind me again, her hands resting lightly on my shoulders. "So are you," she murmured, and I felt her lips brush against my neck just below my ear. The touch sent a shiver through me, and I leaned back into her embrace. Grayson stepped closer, his hands coming up to cup my face gently. "Tell me what you want," he said, his thumb tracing along my lower lip. I could barely think, caught between them, surrounded by their warmth and attention. "I want to feel everything," I whispered. That was all the permission they needed. Grayson's lips found mine in a kiss that was soft at first, then deeper, more demanding. I could taste the wine he'd been drinking, could feel the slight roughness of his jaw against my skin. Behind me, Tessa's hands began to explore, tracing the lines of my dress, the curve of my spine. When Grayson pulled back, I was breathless. Tessa turned me gently to face her, her green eyes dark with desire. "My turn," she said, and her kiss was different, softer, more teasing, but no less intoxicating. I felt Grayson behind me now, his hands settling on my waist as Tessa's lips moved against mine. The sensation of being desired by both of them was overwhelming, intoxicating. I could feel my body responding, heat pooling in my stomach, my skin tingling everywhere they touched. "Come here," Grayson said, guiding me toward a cushioned lounge chair that sat in the shadows. The city lights provided just enough illumination to see by, creating an intimate bubble of golden light around us. I sat on the edge of the chair, my heart pounding as they moved to either side of me. Tessa knelt beside me, her fingers tracing along my collarbone, while Grayson stood in front of me, his eyes dark with desire. "You're so beautiful," Tessa whispered, her lips following the path her fingers had traced. I tilted my head back, closing my eyes as sensation flooded through me. Grayson's hands tangled in my hair, tilting my face up to meet his gaze. "Look at me," he said softly. And when I did, he leaned down to kiss me again, deeper this time, with more urgency. Tessa's hands found the hem of my dress, her fingers dancing along my thighs. "Is this okay?" she asked against my skin. "Yes," I breathed, barely able to form words. The fabric whispered as it slid higher, and I felt the cool night air on my skin. Grayson's hands moved to the straps of my dress, easing them down my shoulders with reverent slowness. Every touch felt electric, charged with possibility. "God, you're perfect," he murmured, his voice rough with desire. Tessa's lips found the sensitive spot where my neck met my shoulder, and I gasped at the sensation. Her hands continued their exploration, tracing patterns on my skin that left me trembling. "I want to make you feel good," Grayson said, his hands framing my face. "Both of us do." I nodded, beyond words now, lost in the sensations they were creating. Tessa helped me lie back on the cushions, her touch gentle but sure. The fabric of my dress pooled around my waist, and I felt completely exposed under their heated gazes. "So responsive," Tessa murmured appreciatively, her fingertips skimming along my ribs. "I love how you react to us." Grayson knelt beside the chair, his hands joining Tessa's in their exploration of my body. Together, they created a symphony of sensation, lips and fingers and whispered encouragements that had me arching beneath their touch. "Please," I whispered, though I wasn't sure what I was asking for. "We've got you," Grayson promised, his voice low and soothing. "Just let go." And I did. I surrendered to the feelings they were creating, to the heat building inside me, to the incredible sensation of being desired and cherished by both of them. Tessa's mouth found mine again as Grayson's lips traced a path down my body, and I felt myself climbing toward something beautiful and overwhelming. The city continued to sparkle below us, but I was lost in my own private universe of sensation and pleasure. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered word of encouragement pushed me higher, until I was trembling on the edge of something magnificent. "That's it," Tessa encouraged, her voice soft against my ear. "Let it happen." When the wave finally crashed, over me it was with an intensity that left me gasping, my body arching beneath their hands as pleasure rolled through me in endless waves. They held me through it, their touches gentle now, soothing, bringing me slowly back to earth. For long moments we stayed like that, me caught between them, their hands stroking my hair, my skin, their voices murmuring soft words of praise and affection. The night air cooled my flushed skin, and slowly, reality began to seep back in. That was... I started, then stopped, unable to find words. Amazing. Grayson finished for me, pressing a soft kiss to my forehead. Perfect, Tessa added, her fingers still tracing gentle patterns on my arm. As my breathing returned to normal, I became aware of the sounds of the party behind us, though it seemed much quieter now. Had people left, or had we simply been too lost in each other to notice? We should probably get you dressed, Tessa said gently, helping me sit up. My dress had become thoroughly disheveled during our encounter, and she helped me arrange it properly, her touch tender and caring. Grayson stood and extended his hand to help me up. How do you feel? I considered the question as I smoothed my hair and tried to make myself presentable. Different, I said finally. Good different. They both smiled at that, and I felt a warmth that had nothing to do with physical pleasure, spread through my chest. These weren't just two attractive people who had given me an incredible experience. They genuinely cared about how I felt, about making sure I was okay. The party's winding down, Grayson observed, glancing back toward the main area of the rooftop. Most people have gone home. I looked around and realized he was right. Only a few stragglers remained, deep in quiet conversation or slow dancing, to the soft music that still played. Somehow, we had created our own private world within the larger gathering. I should probably head home too, I said, though part of me wanted to stay, to see what else this night might bring. Will you be okay getting back? Tessa asked, concern clear in her voice. I'm just next door, I reminded them, gesturing toward my building. Fire escape, remember? Grayson walked me to the edge of the rooftop, where the fire escape ladder provided access between buildings. Will I see you again? He asked, and there was something vulnerable in his voice that made my heart flutter. I'd like that, I said, honestly. He leaned in to kiss me one more time, soft and sweet, a promise of future possibilities. Soon, he whispered against my lips. Tessa appeared beside us, and she kissed me too, her lips soft and warm. Thank you, she said, and I understood that she was thanking me for being open to the experience, for trusting them enough to let it happen. Thank you, I replied, meaning it completely. The climb back to my apartment felt surreal, like I was floating rather than climbing down metal rungs. My body still hummed with the afterglow of their attention, and I could still taste them on my lips, still feel the phantom touch of their hands on my skin. Inside my apartment, I caught sight of myself in the hallway mirror and was surprised by what I saw. My hair was mussed, my lips were swollen from kisses, and there was a glow in my eyes that I hadn't seen in far too long. I looked like a woman who had been thoroughly loved and appreciated. I poured myself a glass of water and stood at my window, looking out at the rooftop where it had all happened. The party was completely over now, the space empty except for the string lights that still twinkled in the darkness. But I could still feel the magic of what had transpired there, still feel the connection I'd shared with Grayson and Tessa. My laptop sat open on my desk, the cursor still blinking on the same page where I'd left it hours ago. But the words that had eluded me earlier now seemed to flow effortlessly as I sat down and began to type. The experience had unlocked something inside me, not just physically but creatively as well. I wrote until dawn, the words pouring out of me like water from a broken dam, and when I finally fell asleep, it was with a smile on my face and the memory of their touches still warm on my skin. The next morning, I was awakened by a soft knock at my door. Still drowsy, I wrapped a robe around myself and peered through the peephole. Grayson stood in the hallway holding 2 cups of coffee and wearing the same soft smile I remembered from the night before. Good morning, he said when I opened the door. I thought you might need this. I accepted the coffee gratefully, inhaling the rich aroma. How did you know I'd be awake? I saw your light on until about 6 a.m., he admitted with a grin. Writer's inspiration? Something like that, I said, feeling heat creep up my neck at the memory of what had inspired those words. Listen, he said, suddenly looking uncertain. About last night was incredible, I finished for him, and his expression relaxed into relief. I was hoping you'd say that. Tessa and we'd like to see you again, if you're interested. Took a sip of the coffee, buying myself time to think, though I already knew my answer. The night before had awakened something in me that I hadn't even realized was sleeping, a sense of adventure, of possibility, of being truly alive. I'm interested, I said, and his smile was brilliant. Good, because I have a feeling this is just the beginning. As I watched him walk back toward the stairs, I realized he was right. Last night had been a revelation, a door opening onto possibilities I'd never considered before, and I was ready to walk through it, to see where this new path might lead. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart racing with anticipation for whatever came next. The city hummed with life outside my window, full of endless possibilities, and connections waiting to be made. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was truly part of it all. Sometimes the best nights are the ones that start with a simple decision to say yes to something unexpected. Have you ever had a moment that changed everything, where you took a chance that led to something beautiful? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if this story sparked something in you, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because, trust me, there's so much more heat coming your way.